Okay, so this video is about using Lightroom Mobile on a desktop computer or even a Chromebook. I'm actually on a Chromebook right now. So you type in lightroom.adobe.com. If you already have a account because you use the Lightroom mobile app on your phone, you would just use that to log in. There's a free version of it. There's a paid version where you get more editing tools, but the free version actually gives you a lot of editing tools. Or I think you might directly be able to go to lightroom.adobe.com and sign up there or log in there. And again, there should be a free version of it. So, anyway, when you go in and you can go to your little library and you see all your photos, and since mine is linked up to my phone, I actually have access to a lot of the images that I have on my phone. But anyway, you can make new albums, put stuff into it, that kind of thing. But most importantly, let me show you how to edit. So if I click on an image, so I don't think I've worked with this before, I can say edit this photo up in the upper left. And it loads my editing tools. And if you watch my video about mobile editing on your phone, you'll see that it's very familiar. Just loading on my little Chromebook. All right, so here's my image. So the first thing I want to do is actually crop it because I want to flip it because I don't like it that way. And maybe I'll even crop it down a little bit. And yes. And when I'm done, I'm going to press enter. Actually, okay. Now I am going to go to adjust. And here I have my options, just like I did on my app on my phone. But I have my options for light. So I can use my exposure to make it overall brighter or overall darker. There might be a little lag. Like I said, I'm working on a Chromebook. And I'm going to lighten this just slightly. The contrast is kind of the difference between your lightest and darkest tone. So if I want to increase that, it'll make my lighter tones lighter, my darker tones darker. If I decrease that, it kind of flattens out that curve and makes it so it's more middle tones. So my black is not that black, my white is not that white. It's kind of in the middle of the tonal range. So I'm actually going to keep that maybe just slightly above. Now, highlights just affects your highlights, so just your lightest areas. So I can make my lightest areas really light, but as you see there, then all those cookies are blown out. Or I could actually bring this down if I want to bring some detail back into the cookies. So I actually like how that looks here because I get much more detail and texture in those cookies. Same with shadows, it affects the darkest areas, so I can lighten up those shadows or I could darken those shadows however I want them to look. I'm just going to do it maybe a little bit. Actually, maybe not at all. Same with the white areas. You can make all the white areas lighter or all the white areas darker. And I'm just going to do maybe a little bit. Actually, might not do any at all. Same with the black areas. I can make my black areas lighter or my black areas darker. And as you can see up here, it moves the histogram around. So I might add in a little bit of darkness there. Okay, so then I'm going to scroll down to color. I have my overall color temperature. So when you take pictures indoors at night, sometimes you get that overall yellow look. If it's too yellow, you would add more blue in. Sorry, you would add more blue into your image. If it's too blue of an image because you took it maybe in the shade outside or as the sun was setting and you want to add some warmth into it, then you would add some yellow into it. I just want maybe a little bit of warmth added into it so it looks like it was taken on in beautiful golden kind of sunlight. I could play around with my vibrance or saturation, but there's something I want to actually show you first, or instead, because you can change your vibrance and your saturation of individual colors. So right here under color, it says black and white, but we also have this little color mixer. And what's great about this is that you can change your hue, your saturation, and your luminance for individual colors. So for orange, we have this orange right here. I can make it a more yellow orange, so I'm affecting just my oranges. So see how my orange becomes a more yellow orange? It almost looks like a lemon. Or I could put it more to the red side. So again, when I'm editing under this, I am just changing the hue or color just of the orange. So this is how it was originally. I actually do want to add a little bit more of a deeper reddish tone to it. I like how that looks. And my green, I have these green leaves, but they're a little too yellowy for me. So not that one. I'm actually going to take my green and move it a little bit to the blue side. So we get more of a bluish tinge there. And you can do that with all of these colors. You can affect them. Then we have saturation. So the hue is you can change the actual color of a color. You can nudge it one way or another. The saturation is the intensity. So if I wanted that orange to be a super intense orange, I could bring this all the way up. Not showing that much, but you can tell it's a little bit more of a neon color. You'll definitely tell when I bring down the saturation because it'll make it actually gray. So that's taking any orange tone, and you can see there must have been some orange actually in the cookies. So I don't actually want to change the saturation at all, I don't think. And again, I could do that. I actually do want to bring the saturation down a little bit of the green because I just think it's like a little bit too much in your face. And I feel like I'd rather have people looking at the orange as a focal point and bring some of the green saturation down. Let's do that. All right. So it's still green and it's that bluish green, but we've brought down the saturation so it's not quite so in your face. And then the last of the 8 that's referred to as HSL, hue, saturation, luminance, is the lightness and darkness of that color. So I have that orange. I can make that orange a light orange, or I could make it like a darker orange. And that's very visible in that example. So I think I just want to bring down the luminance a little bit. All right. So it's a little bit richer of color in there. So those are great things that you can do with color. So we talked about light and we talked about color. And then under the effects, I just want to show you vignettes. There's also things with split toning and stuff, but I just want to show you vignettes. So a vignette, if you do it to the right, it adds kind of a light edge to your image. If you do it to the left, it adds in a dark edge to your finish. If you're using this and you want the other options for your vignette, you just have to press that little button and it will give you more options. So midpoint, so I made it a little darker at the edge here. Midpoint is how close it comes to the center. So I can bring it a lot closer to the center or farther away. So if it's to the right, it's farther away from the center. If it's to the left, it goes more towards the center. That's too much for me. And then the roundness of that vignette, I can make it much more of like a round, move that up and down. Here I can almost see the edge, like it's almost too much, right? Here, if I do it all the way, you'll probably see what I'm talking about. So I am just going to take that a little bit right there to the right. And then feathering is how smooth it fades off into darkness. So if the feather is all the way down, you'll see, look, it's a really harsh edge. It doesn't feather. You have the dark at the edges and then the light in the center. Maybe that's a look you want, but most of the time I would probably increase the feathering just so it's like a smoother look going off to the edges. We can talk about split toning in another time, but of course you can always just click on it and try and play around with it, but it changes kind of the tone and the color of your highlights and your shadows. So anyway, that's the basics of color and vignette and light. And when you're done, you just press save and exit, and you can save your image. And actually, because mine is linked up to my phone, anything I edit in here is actually automatically in my phone as well. And I can, I can download it to my computer. I can share it in different ways. I can do all different kinds of things with it. So play around some with that. But that's the basics of how Lightroom Mobile works. If you have any questions, just let me know.